The first time the room turned cold, Mara thought the hospital aircon had died in a dramatic mood. Then the ultrasound gel on her skin started to feel like ice, and the screen in front of her flickered like it didn't want to show what it was seeing. The technician, a tired woman with kind eyes and a name badge that said SANDRA, went quiet mid-sentence. Not professional quiet. Not I'm concentrating quiet. This was the kind of quiet people get when they've just stepped on something sharp in the dark, but they're trying not to scream. Sandra stared at the monitor, then turned the volume knob up, then down, then up again like she was testing her own sanity. Mara lay there gripping the paper sheet beneath her, forcing her voice to come out normal. Is it okay? Sandra swallowed. It's fine. I just give me a second, yeah. Mara's throat tightened. She came to this appointment alone on purpose. No fuss. No drama. No husband packing around looking bored and annoyed like her body was an inconvenience. She wanted a simple moment, a simple confirmation, a little dot, a little heartbeat, a normal future. But what came through the speakers wasn't one heartbeat. It was two beats layered on top of each other, not like twins, not like echo, like one was answering the other. Thump thump, then a deeper, older rhythm underneath it, steady as a drum in a distant war. Sandra's face went pale. The hairs on Mara's arms lifted. Even the fluorescent light above them buzzed lower like it was nervous. Sandra cleared her throat. Do you feel dizzy? Mara shook her head. No, just scared. Is it twins? Sandra gave a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. No, it's one baby. She leaned closer, whispering like the walls might listen. But I'm hearing a double pattern. That's not standard. It's like there's a second pulse in the room. Mara's mouth went dry. What does that mean? Sandra's fingers trembled as she printed the image. The printer spat out glossy paper like it was trying to get rid of evidence. Sandra handed it over too fast. I'm going to call the doctor. Stay here, yeah, don't move, She stopped. She sniffed the air. Her eyes flicked to Mara's throat, then away like she hated herself for noticing. Have you been around anyone new lately? Mara blinked. What? Sandra forced a smile. Ignore me. Pregnancy does weird things. I'll be right back. The door clicked shut. Mara lay there staring at the ultrasound photo. The baby looked normal, a small curve of life, but the corner of the image had a faint dark ring like a shadow had pressed against the lens. She didn't know why her hands shook, but they did. She was 27. She worked the front desk at a law office. She paid bills on time. She didn't believe in curses or kings or old bloodlines. She believed in calendars and rent and keeping the peace. And yet in that tiny room, peace felt like a lie told by people who'd never seen the dark. Her phone buzzed. A message from her husband. Where are you? Mara swallowed. She typed back at the scan, I'm about to come out. Then she hesitated and added, it's good news. He read it instantly. No reply. She stared at the read receipt like it was a judgment. Then the door opened and the doctor walked in with Sandra behind her. Dr. Patel had a face that said she'd seen everything and still went home to feed her cat like the world was normal. She nodded at Mara, glanced at the printout, then at the screen. Okay, Dr. Patel said slowly. Baby is measuring early but healthy. Heartbeat is strong. Sandra blurted, it's double. Dr. Patel looked at her like she'd spoken nonsense. Sandra pointed at the machine. Listen again. Dr. Patel put the audio on. Her expression changed just for a second like her brain couldn't fit the sound into any medical box. She turned it off quickly. Sometimes machines pick up maternal blood flow, she said, too quick, too smooth. Or interference, Sandra frowned. That's not maternal flow, that sounds like, Dr. Patel cut her off with a glance. Mara, congratulations, you are pregnant, Mara's breath caught. So it's real, Dr. Patel nodded. Yes, real, and you'll need follow-ups. Her eyes lingered on Mara's wrist where an old bracelet sat, a thin chain with a small silver charm Mara wore every day because it was the only thing her late mum left her. Dr. Patel's gaze snapped away. You should go home and rest, no stress. Mara laughed softly, bitter. That's funny. Dr. Patel's voice turned firm. I mean it, no stress. She handed Mara a folder. If you feel anything unusual, pain, dizziness, fainting, you come back immediately. Sandra watched Mara like she wanted to say something but couldn't. Mara dressed with numb hands, folded the ultrasound carefully, and walked out into the main hospital corridor where people laughed at vending machines and argued about parking as if the world wasn't shifting on its axis. She went outside and the sky was heavy with rain, the kind that makes everything look guilty. Her husband's car was waiting. Adrian Hale leaned against the door like he was posing for a magazine, not waiting for his wife. He wore a clean coat, expensive watch, perfect hair. He looked like a man who never lost control. Mara opened the passenger door and slid in. The car smelled like his cologne and something sharp underneath like metal. Adrian didn't look at her. "Well," he said. Mara held out the photo. "We're pregnant." He finally turned. His eyes flicked to the picture, then to her stomach, then back to the picture. For half a second she thought she saw fear, not worry, fear. Then his face flattened into disgust, like fear had annoyed him. "You went alone," he said. Mara blinked. "You said you were busy." "I said I had meetings." His jaw ticked. "Did anyone talk to you? Did anyone ask questions?" Mara frowned. "What? No, just the usual." Adrian snatched the ultrasound picture, stared at it, and his hand tightened so hard the glossy paper creased. His lips parted as if he wanted to say a name but swallowed it. Then he turned the photo upside down like it insulted him. "This is a mistake," he said. Mara's stomach dropped. "Excuse me." Adrian's voice stayed calm, but his calm was sharp, cruel. "A mistake, you shouldn't be pregnant." Mara's mouth went dry. "People get pregnant all the time, Adrian." He laughed once cold. "Not you." Mara felt her face heat. "What's that supposed to mean?" He leaned closer, eyes hard. "Your blood is dangerous, that's what it means." Mara stared at him. "My blood." Adrian turned the car key and pulled out of the parking lot like he couldn't get away from the hospital fast enough. "I told you when we married," he said. "No surprises, no drama. You promised me you'd be sensible." Mara's voice shook. "This is our baby." Adrian's grip tightened on the wheel. "No, it's a problem." Rain hit the windshield like thrown stones. Mara's heart pounded. "Why are you acting like this? You wanted a family." Adrian's laugh was worse this time. "I wanted a normal family." Not, he stopped himself. His eyes flicked to the rear-view mirror like he expected someone behind them. "Not this." Mara reached for the ultrasound photo. "Give it back." Adrian tossed it onto her lap like it was dirty. "You're going to get rid of it," he said. Mara froze. The words landed like a slap. "No." Adrian's calm cracked into anger. "You don't understand what you've done." Mara shook her head. "I don't care. I'm keeping the baby." Adrian's face changed again. The fear returned, sharper now, and it looked like hatred wearing fear's coat. "Then you're not keeping me," he said. The car swerved into their driveway. He parked hard. "Get out." Mara stared at him. "Adrian," he opened his door. "Get out. I'm not doing this. I'm not dying because you couldn't keep your body under control." Mara's throat tightened. "Dying? What are you talking about?" Adrian grabbed his phone, typed fast, and Mara caught a glimpse of one word before he tilted the screen away. "Seal." Mara's blood went cold. "Who are you texting?" Adrian didn't answer. He got out and slammed his door, then opened her door like he was removing a piece of rubbish. "Out now." Mara stepped onto the wet driveway, shaking. "You can't just throw me away." Adrian leaned close, voice low. "Watch me." Then he walked back inside, leaving her in the rain. Mara stood there, rain soaking her hair, her dress sticking to her skin. She pressed the ultrasound to her chest like it could protect her. The front door locked with a hard click. She stared at the house. Their house. The one she cleaned, decorated, tried to make warm. It looked dead now, just brick and windows, no life. Her phone buzzed, a message from Adrian. "Don't contact me again. If you're smart, you'll tell everyone it wasn't mine." Mara's vision blurred. She didn't cry, not because she was strong, but because shock can steal tears. She walked down the driveway, rain hitting her face like judgment. Her shoes filled with water. Cars passed, lights flashing, people inside warm and safe. Nobody stopped. Nobody looked. Mara realized something ugly then. The world ignores women like her until they become a headline. She kept walking. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't stay near Adrian. Not because he rejected her, but because the way he said dying sounded like truth. She reached the bus stop, sat on the cold bench, and unfolded the ultrasound again. The baby's shape was there, small and real. Her hand went to her stomach. "It's just you and me," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "I'll hide you." She swallowed hard and added the part that terrified her most. "Even from your father." The wind shifted, and for a second Mara smelled something strange on the air, like old stone after rain and a faint trace of smoke. She looked up. Across the street, under the flickering street lamp, A man stood in a dark coat, watching her like he'd been waiting. His face was half in shadow, but his eyes caught the light, pale and cold, almost silver. Mara's breath stopped. He didn't move. He didn't wave. He just watched, calm as midnight. And Mara knew, deep in her bones, that Adrian wasn't the only one who felt the change the moment that double heartbeat started. The stranger's lips moved like he was speaking to himself, but Mara still heard it, clear as a blade. "So the blood seal is awake," he murmured. "Finally." Rehook. Mara clutched her belly as the stranger stepped off the curb and walked straight toward her, and the rain seemed to part for him like it was scared. The ultrasound room went cold before the machine made a sound. Not hospital cold, not broken heater cold. This was the kind of cold that crawled under skin and stayed there like something invisible had stepped inside and decided to watch. The technician froze with the wand still pressed to her stomach, her smile slipping so fast it looked like fear trying to pretend it was confusion. The screen flickered, once, twice. Then the sound came through the speakers, a heartbeat, strong, fast. Then another one hit beneath it, slightly out of sync, deeper, heavier, like an echo that didn't belong to a human chest. The lights above hummed. The technician swallowed hard and whispered, "That's not normal." The woman on the bed tightened her fists in the thin paper sheet. She had come here expecting relief or confirmation or even bad news she could survive. What she got instead was silence filled with dread. The technician turned the volume down too quickly, as if afraid the sound might travel further than the room. "I need to get the doctor," she said, already stepping back. Her hands were shaking. "Please don't move." She didn't wait, she left. The door shut with a soft click that sounded far too final. The woman lay there alone, staring at the ceiling, feeling the cold deepen, feeling something inside her respond. Not pain, awareness. As if whatever lived in her womb had noticed it had been heard. Her phone buzzed, a message from her husband. "Where are you?" No question mark, just pressure. She didn't reply. When the doctor finally entered, he didn't sit down. He stood, eyes fixed on the screen, jaw tight. "How long have you known?" he asked. "Known what?" she whispered. He didn't answer. He turned the screen away from her like hiding a weapon. "You need to go home," he said. "Now." She pushed herself up, heart racing. "Is my baby okay?" He flinched at the word baby. "You should not have come here," he said quietly. "And you should not let anyone else examine you again." That was all. No congratulations, no explanation, just fear dressed as authority. By nightfall, rain had swallowed the city. She stood in the doorway of the house she thought was her future, soaked through, holding the scan printout she hadn't been allowed to keep but somehow had taken anyway. Her husband didn't invite her in. He didn't even look surprised. His eyes were already hard, already distant. "You went to a clinic," he said. "I was worried," she replied. He laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You were careless." She tried to hand him the scan. He didn't touch it. "Pregnant," she said. "We're pregnant." That was when his face changed. Not anger, not joy, fear, pure and naked. "No," he said, "you're not." The rain soaked her hair, ran down her face like tears she refused to shed. "The doctor said—" "I don't care what he said," her husband snapped. "I know what you are." She stared at him, confused. "What I am." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Your blood is dangerous." The words hit harder than any insult. "You think I don't know," he continued. "You think I didn't feel it when it happened." He looked at her stomach like it offended him. "That thing inside you doesn't belong to me, and it doesn't belong here." Her chest tightened. "It's your child." He shook his head slowly. "No, it's a problem." He opened the door wider, gesturing to the storm. "You need to leave tonight." She waited for him to soften, to explain, to take it back. He didn't. "If anyone finds out," he said, voice low, "there will be consequences for me, for you, for whatever that is." She stepped back as if struck. "You're throwing me out." "I'm protecting myself," he replied. "And the house." That was the moment she understood. Not cruelty, calculation. She turned and walked into the rain before he could say anything else. Behind her the door closed, not slammed, sealed. She walked until her shoes filled with water and her legs burned. When she finally stopped under a flickering streetlight, she pressed both hands to her stomach. The rain slowed. The cold eased. Inside her, the second heartbeat pulsed once, strong and steady. "I'll hide you," she whispered, voice breaking, "even from your father." Something inside her answered. Not words, not sound, just a calm certainty that settled into her bones. She tore the scan into pieces and dropped them into a gutter, watching the ink blur and vanish. By morning, she would be gone. By morning, no one would know. That was the plan. Years passed quietly, painfully, intentionally small. She chose a town no one noticed, a place that smelled of grease and coffee and resignation. She worked in a diner where no one asked questions and tips were coins left out of habit. Her children grew the way shadows do, slow but impossible to ignore. They didn't glow. They didn't float things or scream lightning. Their power was quieter. Milk didn't spoil when they touched it. Strangers forgot arguments mid-sentence when the kids looked at them. Dogs sat, storms curved away. She taught them to stay small, to never react, to never answer when they felt watched. At night she locked the doors and listened to the wind, waiting for something she couldn't name. She never spoke the truth out loud. She never said vampire, she never said king. But sometimes in the dark she felt it, like a thread pulled tight across the world. Watching, waiting. The diner bell rang one evening and everything changed. He didn't look important. No crown, no guards, just a tall man in a dark coat, rain on his shoulders, eyes too old for his face. He didn't smile, he didn't flirt. He stood still, breathing in, and his gaze snapped to her like a blade finding its sheath. The room dimmed just a fraction. He ordered tea, didn't drink it. His eyes flicked to the children behind the counter, then back to her. "You've been very careful," he said softly. Her hands shook. "Do I know you?" He tilted his head. "No," he said, "but I know you." Before she could move, the windows shattered. Men in black rushed in, guns, silver. The stranger didn't shout, he didn't panic. He stepped forward and ended them with the calm precision of a ruler correcting a mistake. When it was over, blood steamed on the floor. He turned to her, eyes glowing faintly. "He rejected you," he said, "because he recognized what you carried." She couldn't breathe. "Who are you?" He finally smiled, not kindly, not cruelly, like a verdict. "I didn't come to save you," he said. "I came to reclaim what was stolen." And far away, deep beneath the world, something ancient woke up. The man did not sit down after the bodies were dragged out. He stood near the shattered window while rain crept back inside like it had been waiting for permission. The diner smelled of blood and burnt metal, but he looked untouched by it, coat clean, posture calm, eyes fixed on the children as if they were a map he had finally learned to read. She pulled them close without thinking, every instinct screaming danger, yet her body refused to run. Something older than fear was holding her in place. "You tracked us," she said, voice low, steady only because she forced it to be. "You didn't just find us." He nodded once, slow. "I have been tracking them since the moment their second heartbeat formed," he replied. Not pride, not apology, fact. The children watched him silently, too quiet for their age, eyes reflecting more understanding than she wanted to admit. The stranger's gaze softened just enough to register recognition, not affection. "They learned restraint early," he said. "That kept them alive." She felt a flash of anger then, sharp and hot. "You think I did that for you," she snapped. "For whatever throne you crawled out of." He turned to her fully at last. His eyes were not red or glowing now. They were calm, almost human, which somehow made them worse. "You did it because you knew," he said. "Somewhere inside you, you knew attention would kill them." The rain thundered harder, punctuating the truth she had spent years refusing to shape into words. They did not go back to the house she had been renting. She knew better than to argue when he said it was compromised. He moved them before dawn, through roads that did not appear on maps, into an estate that rose out of the mist like a decision already made. Stone, iron, silence. It did not feel like safety. It felt like containment. The children were separated gently but firmly, taken to rooms guarded by people who did not speak. She followed, heart pounding, until the man raised a hand and the air itself seemed to pause. "They are protected," he said, "more than they have ever been." "By you," she replied. "Or from you." A flicker crossed his face, something like memory, something like restraint. "Both," he said. Inside, the walls were etched with symbols that made her skin prickle. She recognized none of them, yet her blood reacted as if they were familiar. The man watched that reaction carefully. "The blood seal is active," he murmured. "Fully now." She stepped back. "Stop talking like they're objects." His gaze sharpened. "Then stop pretending they are not." He gestured toward a high window where light bent strangely around the glass. Your husband knew, that is why he rejected you. Her chest tightened. He rejected us because he was cruel. No, the man said. He rejected you because he was afraid of a war he could not win. The truth unfolded without drama, without mercy. Ancient law, royal blood oaths. A lineage thought erased, hidden deliberately through women made invisible, children taught to be small, blood diluted but never broken. Her pregnancy had not been normal because it had not been allowed to be. The double heartbeat was the oath waking up, recognizing compatible blood and binding itself without consent. You were chosen, the man said, not by me but by the law itself. She laughed then, brittle and hollow. I didn't choose anything, she said. I survived. He inclined his head. That is the same thing in older languages. She looked at him, really looked this time, and understood something that made her stomach drop. You're not here because you care, she said. You're here because you're losing control. He did not deny it. The moment the blood seal activated, he said, every throne felt it. I came before the others did. She folded her arms, anger sharpening into resolve. You waited, she said. You let us live in dirt and fear. His voice dropped. Because early rescue would have marked them for execution. Silence swallowed the room. I have made that mistake before, he added. I will not repeat it. Days passed inside the estate, each one heavy with unspoken rules. The children were taught, tested, watched, not trained to fight but trained to disappear. Nobles visited, looked, whispered, treated her like an inconvenience, like an asset that had been mishandled. She saw the way they flinched when the children passed, the way old sigils reacted to their presence. Power shifted subtly, like a table leg knocked loose. One night she confronted the man in a hall lined with portraits of rulers who all looked vaguely disappointed. You hid us, she said, but you also caged us. He turned from the window. Protection is not comfort, he replied. It is strategy. You're building something, she said, and we're bricks. He studied her, something like approval crossing his face. You learn quickly. She stepped closer. My husband, she said. Where is he? The air tightened. He has been preparing his own claim, the man replied. He believes fear makes him righteous. Her jaw clenched. He will try to take them. Yes, the man agreed, and he will fail. There was no comfort in his certainty, only consequence. The court assembled weeks later, a gathering disguised as celebration. Gold, music, smiles sharp enough to cut. She stood among them dressed in borrowed finery, feeling every eye weigh her worth. Her husband arrived late, confident, polished, already rehearsing the lie he would tell. He did not look at her at first. When he did, his expression flickered. Recognition, panic, calculation. He approached with a practiced smile. You disappeared, he said softly. People worried. She said nothing. The children stood behind her, quiet as ever. The man in black took his place on the raised platform, gaze sweeping the room. When he spoke, silence obeyed. We are here to address a claim, he said. Her husband stepped forward. Those children are mine, he declared. She ran. I seek custody, murmurs rippled. The man waited until they died. You rejected her, he said then. While she carried heirs. The room froze. Her husband's smile cracked. That is not, that, the man continued, voice cold and precise, is treason. The floor sigils ignited. Blood reacted. Ancient law answered. Nobles backed away as if the truth had teeth. The verdict was not death. It was worse. Her husband was stripped, name, claim, future. He was erased in front of the very power he had tried to escape. As guards took him away, he screamed her name like it was a weapon. She did not look at him. She looked at the man who had orchestrated it all. You didn't save us, she said. He met her gaze. No, he replied. I positioned you. The children reached for her hands. She squeezed back, grounding herself in the only truth that mattered. They were alive, for now. As the court dissolved into fear and calculation, a whisper moved through the hall like a warning. If the king had claimed them, the others would come. The first sign that the other kings were moving was not an attack, it was silence. The birds that nested along the outer walls of the estate vanished overnight. Servants stopped dreaming. Even the wind changed direction, curling inward instead of passing through. The man in black noticed it immediately. He stood on the highest balcony at dawn, coat unmoving, eyes scanning a horizon that looked the same to everyone else. They've felt the verdict, he said quietly. and they don't like it." She joined him, arms wrapped around herself, watching fog rise like a living thing. "How many?" she asked. He didn't answer straight away. "Enough," he said finally. "And not all of them will come with armies. Some will come with offers." As if summoned by the word, messengers began arriving before noon, pale figures bearing seals older than the estate itself. Each one bowed to the king, then glanced at her with interest too sharp to be polite. The children were kept away, hidden behind layers of stone and spellwork, but she could feel them through the bond now, like pressure behind her eyes. They were aware, learning, adapting faster than anyone expected. That afternoon, the first offer was delivered in a velvet box: land, titles, silence. "They want the children divided," the king said, reading the letter once before burning it. "Shared custody of power." She felt something twist inside her. "You won't," she said. He looked at her then, really looked. "No," he replied, "but not because I'm kind." She exhaled slowly. "Because it would weaken you." His mouth curved faintly. "Exactly." That night she dreamed of the ultrasound room again. The double heartbeat louder now, echoing like drums. When she woke, the estate was under lockdown. Wards flared, guards doubled. The children were restless, asking questions she could no longer dodge. "Why do they hate us?" one of them asked. She swallowed. "Because you matter," she said. It felt like a lie and a truth at the same time. The second offer came with teeth. A delegation arrived unannounced, ancient figures wrapped in civility so tight it cracked. They spoke of balance, of tradition, of correcting mistakes. "The blood seal was never meant to awaken in obscurity," one of them said smoothly. "The mother should have been culled." She moved before she could think. The room went cold. The king's voice cut through like steel. "Choose your next word carefully." The delegate smiled thinly. "Or what?" The answer was simple. The floor opened. The delegate vanished. No scream, just absence. The others bowed and left. That night she confronted him again. "You're escalating," she said. "You're painting targets on them." He met her fury without flinching. "They were born targets," he said. "I'm just refusing to let others aim." She shook her head. "You're not the only one deciding their future." Something dark flickered behind his eyes. "No," he said, "but I am the only one who can survive what comes next." Children's powers began to surface in subtler ways. Locks opened for them. Truth slipped out of mouths when they were near. One morning, a servant collapsed, whispering apologies for crimes no one had accused him of. She watched it happen, fear and awe tangling in her chest. "They're changing the people around them," she said. The king nodded. "Anchors," he replied. "Reality bends towards stability, and they are becoming it." That word settled heavily between them. Anchor, not air, not weapon, something worse. Something permanent. The estate was no longer just a fortress. It was a focal point. She felt it in her bones, in the way the ground hummed at night, in the way dreams came easier to some and not at all to others. She realized then that hiding had never been the end game. It had only been the delay. The third offer arrived wrapped in mercy. A queen this time, veiled in white, eyes ancient and tired. She spoke softly. "Let me take them," she said. "I can raise them away from thrones and blood." She looked at the children with something almost like longing. For a moment hope flickered. Then the king asked one question. "And when the seal pulls the world toward them," he said, "what happens to the place you hide them?" The queen closed her eyes. "It burns," she admitted. He inclined his head. "That is why there is no way." The queen left in silence. The hope died with her departure. That night the king finally told her the full truth. Not about the law, not about the war, about the mistake. "I saved a woman once," he said, staring into a fire that did not warm him. "Pulled her into the light, declared her protected. She died within a week. The attention killed her faster than any blade." His jaw tightened. "So I learned." She listened, heart aching. "You let us suffer," she said softly. "Because suffering keeps you invisible." He did not deny it. "And now," she said, "we're visible anyway." He looked at her then, something like regret surfacing. "Yes," he said, "which means the real test begins." The attack came without warning. Not an army, not a siege. One blade, one shadow. It slipped through the wards like it belonged there. She sensed it before anyone else, a cold spike through the bond. She ran. The corridor exploded in light as the king appeared, intercepting the assassin mid-strike. They fought without sound, violence compressed into seconds. When it was over, the assassin lay ash on the floor. The king wiped blood from his hand. "They're testing response time now," he said. "Next time they won't be subtle." She held the children tight that night, feeling their heartbeats sync with hers, double, steady, unafraid. She realized then that the question was no longer how to hide them. It was when to stop hiding at all. At dawn, the king summoned the court. "Prepare," he said simply. "If they come for the children, we do not retreat." She stepped forward, heart pounding. "And if they come for me?" He met her gaze. "Then," he said, "they will learn why you were chosen." The bells rang. The world shifted again. Somewhere far away, other thrones stirred, recognizing the pull of a power they could no longer ignore. The truth reached her through the children first, not the king. It always did. She was brushing one of their hair before sleep when the child went still, eyes unfocusing like they were listening to a voice no one else could hear. The air in the room thickened, not cold this time, but heavy, charged. "Mum," the child whispered, voice too calm for the word, "someone is calling us." Her stomach dropped. "Calling how?" The child frowned. Like a lock recognizing a key. That was when she felt it too, a tug deep in her chest, sharp and directional, pulling toward the east. She staggered back, breath catching. Down the hall, alarms flared, wards screaming as if offended. The king appeared instantly, eyes blazing, coat already in motion. "They've found the secondary seal," he said. "We're out of time." She followed him into the war chamber, walls alive with shifting sigils and maps that moved on their own. "You said the blood seal was unique," she said. "You said only you could track it." He didn't look at her. "I said only one king could claim it," he corrected. "Tracking is a different matter." He gestured to a symbol pulsing on the map. "There is an ancient mechanism bound to the oath, a failsafe. It responds to convergence." Her pulse roared in her ears. "Explain." He finally faced her. "Your children are anchors," he said, "but they are also keys. Their existence stabilizes the seal, but their awakening opens paths that have been closed for centuries." She shook her head. "You let this happen." His jaw tightened. "I delayed it." "By breaking us," she snapped. The accusation hung heavy. He did not argue. "Yes," he said, "because broken things don't shine, and shining things attract executioners." The enemy revealed itself not as a single force, but as an idea moving through people. Courtiers whispered differently. Guards hesitated at doors they had guarded for decades. Someone had taught them a counter-language, a way to speak around wards instead of through them. She watched the estate unravel thread by thread, sabotage disguised as protocol. When she confronted the king with it, he did not deny it. "The keys draw attention," he said, "and attention breeds treachery." "Then stop treating them like objects," she said. "They're children." His gaze softened just a fraction. "And that," he said, "is why you are still alive." She realized then that he had not only protected the children by keeping them small, he had protected her by making her seem irrelevant, an escort, a vessel, a shadow. She had survived because no one thought she mattered, until now. The first betrayal came from inside. A noblewoman she had shared tea with, smiled with, revealed her allegiance by unlocking a gate with blood not her own. The courtyard flooded with figures wrapped in ash-colored cloaks, moving without urgency, confident. "We don't want to fight," their leader called. "We want the keys." The king stepped forward, power rolling off him in waves that bent light. "You cannot use them," he said. The leader smiled. "You taught us how." The fight that followed was brutal and fast. Not a battle, but an extraction attempt. She felt the pull intensify, the children crying out through the bond as something tried to map their existence. She screamed, a sound torn from somewhere deep, and the pull snapped like a wire. The courtyard exploded outward, throwing attackers back. Silence followed, thick and stunned. She collapsed to her knees, shaking. The king stared at her, shock naked on his face. "You shouldn't be able to do that," he said. She looked up, breath ragged. "I carried the seal," she replied. "Don't pretend I was just a container." After that, there was no more pretending. The king told her everything, not just the law, but the outcome. "If the keys are claimed," he said, "the old hierarchy collapses. New thrones rise, chaos. And if they're destroyed—" He didn't answer. She didn't need him to. "You built this war," she said, "by choosing us." He shook his head slowly. "The war existed long before you," he said. "I just chose where it would end." She understood then what he truly was, not a savior, not a villain. an executioner shaping history with cold hands. And she had been placed at the center of his design not by accident, but because her capacity to endure had proven something the others lacked. The children were brought to the war chamber for the first time. They stood calm amid chaos, eyes bright, unafraid. "We can feel the doors," one of them said. "They're opening." The king knelt before them, an act that stunned the court. "Do not open anything," he said gently. "Not yet." The children nodded, trusting. She felt tears burn her eyes. "You can't ask this of them," she said. "They didn't choose this." The king rose. "Neither did you," he said, "and yet here you stand." The estate trembled as another force pressed against the outer wards, stronger this time, coordinated. "We need to move," he said. "There is one place they cannot reach yet." She stiffened. "Where?" He looked at her, expression unreadable. "The center," he said, "the point where the seal was forged." Her blood went cold. "That's a death sentence." He nodded. "For most." They left before dawn, slipping through paths that hurt to walk, reality thinning around them. She felt the weight of the world pressing closer with every step, felt eyes turning toward them from places that did not exist before. At the threshold, the children stopped. "If we go in," one of them said softly, "we won't be able to be small anymore." She knelt, taking their faces in her hands. "You don't have to be small," she said. "You just have to be kind." They smiled. Behind them, the king watched, something like reverence flickering through his control. As they crossed the boundary, the seal flared, ancient and awake, calling every power still left standing. The center was not a place. It was a pause in existence, a hollow where time bent inward and history breathed. The moment they crossed the threshold, the noise of pursuit vanished, replaced by a low, constant hum that vibrated through bone and thought. The children stood taller here, not physically, but in presence, as if the space itself recognized them. Symbols ignited across the floor, ancient lines threading together into a circle that pulsed like a living heart. She felt it then, the truth settling heavy and clear. This was never about hiding. It was about narrowing the options until only one path remained. The king moved with reverence, placing his hand against a pillar etched with names long erased. "This is where the oath binds," he said quietly, "where blood chooses purpose." She stepped forward, anger burning steady now, no longer wild. "And where you plan to end it," she said. He did not deny it. "If necessary," he replied. The children looked between them, calm but alert. "End what?" one asked. The king exhaled slowly. "The cycle," he said. "Kings hunting kings. Bloodlines eating themselves to stay powerful." She laughed once, sharp and broken. "So you use my children as the blade." His eyes met hers. "As the lock," he corrected. "A blade cuts. A lock decides who enters the future." The walls shifted, revealing echoes of the past. Not visions, but imprints. A woman kneeling where she now stood, pregnant and terrified. Another king behind her, younger, desperate. "That was the first," the king said. "I saved her," he said, voice heavy. "I gave her guards, walls, status." The imprint flickered, showing the woman paraded before a council, declared a threat, executed to thunderous approval. "Protection made her visible," he said. "Visibility killed her." She understood then the depth of his restraint, the cruelty wrapped in patience. He had not repeated the mistake. He had perfected the delay. The hum intensified. Outside the center, forces collided, kings, lords, hunters, all drawn by the awakening seal. "They will break through," she said. "Eventually," he nodded, "which is why the choice must be made now." He turned to the children. "If the doors open fully," he said, "every crown will shatter, war will burn until nothing remains." He looked back at her. "If they close," he continued, "power consolidates. One dynasty stands, mine." The words were not a threat. They were a confession. "You don't want a new world," she said. "You want control." His jaw tightened. "Control is the only thing that keeps monsters predictable." She stepped between him and the circle. "You don't get to decide alone," she said. The seal reacted instantly, light flaring around her feet, recognizing the carrier. The king froze. "That was not expected," he said softly. "You bound me to this," she replied. "You bound them through me." The children joined her, hands brushing hers, the hum stabilizing into a rhythm that matched their breath. "We can feel the paths," one said. "There are more than two." The king's eyes widened just slightly. Impossible, he said. The law is binary. The law is old, the child replied. We are not. The revelation cracked something open. The center responded, symbols rearranging, new lines weaving through the old. A third state, not open, not closed, balanced. The king staggered back, awe breaking through centuries of discipline. This changes everything, he whispered. She looked at him, fierce and steady. It ends it, she said. The approaching forces slammed against the boundary, but instead of shattering, the impact diffused, power draining into the seal and dispersing harmlessly. The war outside faltered, confused, leaderless. Crowns lost their pull, bloodlines dimmed. The children released their hands, the glow fading into a quiet warmth. The center settled, no longer humming, simply present. The king sank to one knee, breath unsteady. You have undone me, he said, not angry, relieved. She watched him, this ruler who had hidden cruelty inside mercy, and saw something like freedom in his defeat. No, she said. We undid the trap. He looked up at her. What happens now? He asked. She turned toward the thinning walls where daylight began to seep through cracks that hadn't existed before. Now, she said, they grow up without being weapons. The king nodded slowly. And me? It wasn't a question. She met his gaze. You stay, she said, but you learn to rule without cages. They walked out together as the center dissolved behind them, its purpose fulfilled. The world outside felt quieter, less sharp, as if something predatory had lost its scent. Whispers would spread, stories would twist, but the keys were no longer keys. They were children, and the king, stripped of his executioner's certainty, followed them into a future he could not fully control. The silence after balance was the most dangerous sound she had ever heard. It wasn't peace. It was the sharp intake of breath before a scream. Across the territories, ancient wards flickered like dying stars, their authority drained. Kings who had ruled by blood alone felt it first, a sudden hollowness where certainty used to sit. Messengers ran, councils panicked. Old alliances cracked under the weight of a truth they could not deny anymore. The law that kept monsters obedient had changed, and none of them had voted for it. He stood on the terrace as dawn bled into the sky, the light no longer burning his skin but still unwelcome. The children slept inside, exhausted yet calm, as if their bodies understood they had crossed a line history would never erase. He had expected screams from the night, retaliation, and immediate strike. Instead, the world waited. Waiting was worse. Waiting meant thinking. Waiting meant planning. They will come in softer, he said without turning. She joined him, wrapping her coat tighter against the cold. They always do, she replied. Soft hands first, then knives, he nodded. Envoys, he said. Marriages, treaties, offers that sound like mercy, she scoffed. And threats that sound like advice. The children would be targets now, not as weapons but as symbols. Symbols were harder to kill and easier to corrupt. Inside the great hall, the first delegation arrived before noon. Not soldiers, scholars, old blood wearing polite faces and carrying books instead of blades. They bowed low, eyes avoiding the children. Balance is unstable, their leader said calmly. History teaches us correction follows innovation. He didn't rise to meet them. He let the height difference speak. History, he said, is written by those who survive change. The scholar smiled thinly. Then allow us to help you survive it. They spoke of shared guardianship, of schools, of training, of protection that sounded like cages with softer locks. She felt anger stir, but before she could speak, one of the children stepped forward. You're scared, the child said simply. The scholar stiffened. We are cautious, he corrected. No, the child replied, scared because you can't tell us what to be. The hall shifted, subtle but real. The old blood felt it too. They withdrew, bows sharper this time, politeness cracking at the edges. When they were gone, he turned to her. This is the part where I usually decide, he said quietly. I eliminate uncertainty. She met his gaze. And this is the part where you don't, she said. Because if you do, the balance dies with them. He exhaled, a sound like surrender and relief tangled together. You're asking me to trust the future, he said. I'm asking you to stop fearing it, she replied. That night the second approach came, not with words, with fire. A minor lord, desperate to prove relevance, breached the outer lands with a private army, convinced chaos still answered to force. He watched the flames from the tower, hands clenched, old instincts roaring back. "Let me end this," he said. "Let me remind them what I am." She shook her head. "They're watching to see if you will," she said. "If you do, they'll know nothing changed." The children stood between them, eyes reflecting firelight. "We can stop it," one said, "but not the old way." They walked to the edge together. The child raised a hand, not in command but in invitation. The seal responded, spreading outward like a breath, touching the invading force without striking it. Weapons dulled. Orders faltered. Fear drained into confusion. The army collapsed inward, leaderless, men dropping to their knees not from pain but from the sudden absence of purpose. The flames died as if embarrassed. He stared, awe and terror warring on his face. "They didn't punish," he whispered. "They neutralized." She nodded. "Power doesn't have to hurt to end a fight," she said. Words spread faster than fire ever could. The balance was not a threat. It was a refusal. Refusal to play the old game. Refusal to crown new tyrants. Kings who thrived on dominance felt the ground shift beneath them. Some would adapt. Others would not. And those who would not were already planning something darker, something that did not require bloodlines or laws, something that could not be balanced. He felt it before the messengers arrived, a cold pressure at the edge of thought. "There are things older than kings," he said, "things that don't negotiate." She looked at the sleeping children, at the future breathing softly in their chests. "Then they'll have to learn," she said, "like everyone else." The first sign that something older had woken was not an attack but absence. Birds stopped landing on the outer walls. Wolves went silent in the forests. Even the night insects, creatures that usually thrived under his rule, vanished as if the dark itself had been evacuated. Power did not retreat unless something more frightening had entered the room. He felt it in his bones, a pressure that did not belong to fear but recognition. This was not a rival king. This was not rebellion. This was correction. "They don't care about balance," he said slowly as they stood in the map chamber. The candles burned low, their flames bending inward. "They existed before law, before crowns. They were buried because even our kind couldn't control them." She folded her arms, forcing her voice to stay steady. "And now," he looked at the map, at territories marked in blood and ink. "Now they've noticed the seal activate. Balance is loud to things that live on chaos." The children felt it too. One woke screaming from a dream that wasn't theirs, whispering about stone doors opening underground and names that tasted like rust. The other began drawing symbols they had never been taught, circles broken on purpose, lines that refused symmetry. When she asked where the images came from, the child only said, "They're angry we stopped the noise." He understood then. The old powers fed on endless war, on hierarchy collapsing and rebuilding, on bloodline after bloodline trying to dominate. Balance starved them. The council's response was immediate and cowardly. Letters arrived sealed with panic, blaming him. "Your experiment has destabilized the ancient containment," one read. Another was less polite. "Undo it or we will." He crushed the parchment in his hand. "They think I can just switch it off," he snarled. "They think this was a trick." She placed her hand over his fist. "They're scared," she said. "So are you." He didn't deny it. Fear sharpened him. Fear also tempted him. That night the ground shook beneath the lower city. Not violently, not enough to destroy, but enough to announce presence. A sound followed, deep and hollow, like a bell struck inside the earth. People fled their homes, convinced the world was ending. He stood at the highest tower, eyes burning silver, scanning the darkness. "They're testing," he said, "probing to see who will answer with force." One of the children stepped forward, voice calm in a way no child should be. "If you answer like before, they win." A figure emerged from the fissure at dawn. Not monstrous in shape, but wrong in movement, joints bending where they shouldn't, face smooth as if unfinished. It spoke without sound, the words forming directly inside their heads. "Balance is theft," it said. "Return the noise." He felt the urge rise, ancient and familiar, to tear it apart, to assert dominance and remind the world why he had been feared. His hand lifted. Power coiled, eager. The creature smiled without a mouth. "Stop," she said quietly. He froze. The silence stretched, unbearable. "This is what they want," she continued. A monster answering a monster. Let them prove they exist without violence. The children moved beside him, hands touching his arms, grounding him. He lowered his hand, muscles screaming in protest. "We won't return the noise," he said into the void. "We won't feed you." The creature tilted its head, confusion rippling through its form. "Then starve with us," it replied, and sank back into the earth. The fissure closed, but the message remained. This was not a war that could be won quickly. This was attrition. The old powers would bleed the world slowly, pushing it toward desperation, waiting for someone, anyone, to choose violence again. Later, as the city tried to sleep, he finally spoke the thought he had been avoiding. "They're going to target humans," he said. "They'll create chaos where balance can't reach, force our hand." She nodded, eyes dark. "Then we change how protection works," she said. "No more kings standing above, no more saviors arriving late." He looked at her sharply. "That would dismantle everything." She met his gaze without flinching. "Good." The children watched them, understanding too much. One asked the question neither adult wanted to answer. "What if people choose fear anyway?" He knelt, placing his forehead against the child. "Then we let them," he said softly. "Balance isn't control, it's choice." The child nodded, satisfied in a way that frightened him more than any enemy. Far away, deep beneath a mountain older than memory, something else shifted, something that had never been sealed by law, something that did not need noise to survive. It smiled in the dark, sensing opportunity. The city did not fall into panic after the fissure closed. That was the most unsettling part. People carried on, shops reopened, guards returned to their posts, and the council issued calm statements about minor seismic disturbances. Normality became a mask, and everyone wore it too tightly. He knew this silence was dangerous. Fear that is named can be managed. Fear that is denied grows teeth. The old powers thrived on denial, on the lie that everything was fine right before it broke. He changed the structure overnight. Patrols were dissolved, not replaced. Instead, community circles formed, humans and vampires together, sharing watch duties without hierarchy. Nobles protested immediately. "You're diluting authority," they accused. He answered with cold honesty. "Authority is what broke us." Some walked away in disgust. Others stayed, not out of loyalty but curiosity. Balance did not need obedience. It needed participation. She watched the changes with a mix of pride and dread. Every step toward equality stripped away the armor that had protected him for centuries. He was no longer untouchable. He was visible. "They'll come for you now," she warned one night as they stood on the balcony, city lights flickering below. "They already are," he replied. "That's the point." His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with sleeplessness. He was holding too many futures at once. The children became symbols without meaning to. People saw them walking freely through districts once divided by blood law and felt something shift inside themselves. Hope, yes, but also resentment. Hope always created enemies. One child noticed first, tugging at his sleeve. "They're watching us differently," they whispered. He followed the gaze, saw the tight smiles, the clenched hands. "They're afraid of what they might become," he said. "That fear is older than any monster." The old powers did not strike directly. Instead, they whispered. Accidents increased. Fires broke out where no flame should live. A bridge collapsed, killing dozens, and the ground beneath it showed no fault line. Grief turned sharp, and sharp grief searched for blame. Pamphlets appeared overnight, blaming the balance, blaming him, blaming the children. "This peace is cursed," they read. "We were safer when the king ruled." He burned the papers in silence, knowing suppression would only prove them right. Then came the offer. A delegation from the deepest council chamber arrived, faces pale, words rehearsed. "Restore the old order," they said. "Take full control again. The old powers will retreat if they sense strength." He laughed once, a harsh sound. "You don't want strength," he replied. "You want familiarity." One elder leaned forward, eyes desperate. "We want survival." He met their gaze. "So do I. That's why I won't do it." That night the old powers spoke again, not through the earth but through a human voice. A child from the lower district, no older than 10, stood in the square and screamed words that weren't hers. "Balance is bleeding," the voice said. "Choose a king or choose extinction." The crowd froze. He stepped forward slowly, heart hammering. This was the trap. A public confrontation. a chance to crown him again through fear. He knelt instead, in front of everyone. The murmurs turned to gasps. Kings did not kneel, monsters did not bow. He placed his hand over his heart. "I will not rule you," he said loudly. "I will stand with you. If that isn't enough, then let the dark judge me, not you." The child collapsed, the voice gone. The square remained silent long after. Later, alone, he shook, not from weakness but from restraint. "If they push harder," he admitted, "I don't know if I can keep choosing this." She held his face, forcing him to look at her. "You don't have to be perfect," she said. "You just have to keep choosing." The children listened from the doorway, understanding the weight of that promise. Deep beneath the world, the old powers shifted strategy. Fear had not crowned a king. It had created something worse: uncertainty. And uncertainty, given time, could rot even balance from the inside. The betrayal did not come from the shadows. It came from the center, from the very system built to replace fear with trust. That was how it worked every time. Power did not attack balance from outside first. It corrupted it from within, quietly, politely, wearing the face of reason. The traitor was someone everyone trusted, someone who spoke softly about safety while counting bodies in their head. It began with a meeting request marked urgent. A coordinator from the shared districts asked to see him privately, claiming to have proof that the old powers were planning something catastrophic. He hesitated only a second. Refusing trust would undo everything he had built. He went alone. That was the mistake. The room was sealed the moment he entered. Sigils flared under the floor, ancient and illegal, burning with the same authority that once crowned kings. He felt it instantly, the pull of old laws trying to snap him back into a shape he had broken himself out of. "You shouldn't have come," the coordinator said, voice shaking, eyes wet. "They said this was the only way." Guards stepped from hidden doors, not old nobles but people from the new circles. Humans, vampires, balanced, complicit. He did not fight, he raised his hand slowly. "What did they promise you?" he asked. The answer was whispered, almost ashamed. "Order." That word again, he nodded. "They always do." The sigils tightened, draining his strength, not enough to kill him but enough to cage him. Execution was not the plan, public collapse was. A fallen reformer was more useful than a dead king. The news spread fast, distorted by panic. "He's been detained for everyone's safety. The balance experiment has failed. The children are unstable." She heard it in fragments, each one sharper than the last. By the time she reached the council hall, the narrative was already hardening into truth. She was not invited inside. She was told to wait. That word again. Wait. She had waited her whole life. She did not wait this time. She walked straight into the hall, children at her sides. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Fear surfaced openly now, ugly and desperate. An elder stood. "This is not the place." She cut him off with a voice that carried without shouting. "You built this place to decide who gets to live safely. I'm here because you've decided we don't." They tried to dismiss her, tried to soften it, then they tried threats. None of it worked. She had spent years surviving rejection. Their authority meant nothing to her now. "You're scared," she said calmly. "Not of him, of what happens if he's right." Silence fell. That was the wound. She had named it. They brought him in then, bound but alive, displayed like proof of failure. She met his eyes and saw apology there, sharp and raw. She shook her head slightly. This was not his fault alone. It never was. She turned to the chamber. "You want order," she said. "Fine, here's the truth you're avoiding." She took the children's hands and stepped forward. "You can't go back, not without killing us." A murmur rose, turning into argument. One voice cut through it all. A young council member, human, stood trembling. "If we undo this," they said, "we teach the world that fear wins, that balance was a phase." Others joined, hesitant at first, then louder. The room split visibly, not by blood but by belief. The old powers chose that moment to act. The walls cracked, not violently but precisely, like a surgeon's cut. A presence filled the chamber, ancient and vast. "Choose," it demanded through every mind at once, "king or collapse." He strained against the bindings, blood burning. She stepped forward alone. "No," she said. The word echoed strangely. We choose consequence. The sigils shattered, not from power but from refusal. The old presence recoiled, confused. It had never been denied without a replacement. He collapsed as the restraints fell, caught by the people who had once been ordered to watch him. The chamber erupted into chaos, but it was human chaos now, flawed and alive. Later, in the quiet aftermath, she sat beside him as he recovered. "They'll keep coming," he said hoarsely. "The old powers don't forgive," she nodded. "Neither do we." The children slept nearby, exhausted but safe for now. Outside, the city waited, uncertain again, but no longer pretending. The world did not end the night they refused both kings and gods. That surprised everyone. There was no final explosion, no sky tearing open, no divine punishment raining down. Instead, there was silence. Heavy, uncertain, unfamiliar silence. The kind that follows when an old noise stops and no one knows what comes next. The old powers withdrew, not defeated but confused. They had ruled through patterns for centuries. Fear led to kings. Chaos led to crowns. Submission led to survival. What had just happened did not fit the pattern. The city woke the next morning bruised but breathing. Windows were shattered, streets cracked, and trust was damaged in ways no stone could measure, but people were alive. That mattered. He stood on the balcony at dawn, feeling the sun touch skin that had once burned at its presence. The children stood beside him, quiet, sensing the weight of what had changed. "Is it over?" one of them asked. He did not lie. "No," he said gently, "but it's different now." The council dissolved itself within days. Not dramatically, not as an act of heroism, but because it could no longer pretend to represent a world that had outgrown it. Smaller assemblies formed instead. Messy ones. Loud ones. People argued. People disagreed. Sometimes they walked away angry, but no single voice ruled them all anymore. That terrified some. Others felt something close to relief. For the first time, survival was not decided behind closed doors. The old nobles retreated into obscurity or left entirely. Some tried to rally support for restoration, but the fear they once commanded was thinner now. It had been named, it had been challenged, and once fear is seen clearly, it never looks as powerful again. A few extremists vanished into the edges of the world, muttering about purity and crowns. They would be a problem one day. Everyone knew that. Balance was not peace, it was work. He did not take a throne. That was the loudest statement of all. When people came to him asking what he would rule now, he corrected them every time. "I don't rule," he said. "I stay." It was a strange promise, but it mattered. Power that stays accountable does not look like power anymore. It looks like presence, and presence could be questioned. She watched him change in ways no crown ever allowed. He laughed more, slept less, listened harder. Guilt did not leave him, but it softened, becoming something useful instead of corrosive. "You could have walked away," she told him one night as they watched the city lights blink on. "You already paid enough." He shook his head. "Walking away is how this started. Staying is how it ends." The children grew into themselves quickly, not as weapons, not as symbols, as people. They learned when to hide their power and when not to. They learned that strength without choice was just another cage. Some feared them still, but fear no longer had law behind it. It had to argue its case like everything else. That alone changed the world more than any battle. Far beyond the city, other rulers watched. Other kings felt the shift in ancient currents and did not like it. Messages arrived wrapped in politeness and threat, invitations to negotiate, warnings disguised as concern. He read them all and burned most of them. "Let them come," he said calmly. "If they do, they'll have to speak out loud." Silence had been the old weapon. This world no longer gave it shelter. One evening, as the city settled into a fragile rhythm, he admitted the truth he had carried alone for centuries. "If I had chosen differently," he said quietly, "if I had crowned myself again, the world would be calmer." She did not argue. She understood that temptation now. "But calmer isn't safer," she replied. "It's just quieter while people disappear." He closed his eyes, knowing she was right, knowing that was the cost. The old powers did not vanish. They never did. They slept, wounded and watchful, waiting for patterns to return. But patterns require agreement. And the world, for the first time, was not agreeing. That was the real revolution, not balance, not equality, refusal. As dawn broke again, ordinary and beautiful, he realized something else. He had not saved the world. He had not even fixed it. All he had done was stop deciding for it. And somehow that had been enough to change everything. If you enjoyed this dark, slow-burn story of power, fear, and impossible choices, subscribe to Vampire Verse, like the video, and stay with us. These worlds don't end here. Do you think refusing power is braver than ruling with it? Yes or no?